Roll Credits, where movie lovers get the trivia they didn't know they needed. This podcast was created with help from AI tools, so double-check any quotes before you drop trivia at your next movie night. Today, we're laughing our way through Scary Movie, the long-awaited return of the franchise that made absolutely nothing in Hollywood safe.
Yeah, and I mean, it's truly a massive cinematic event. It is actively basically breaking the algorithm for how modern Hollywood operates.
It really is. And, to figure out exactly how this happened, we are taking a deep dive into a huge stack of sources today.
A really big stack.
Yeah. We've got critical reviews, behind-the-scenes interviews with the cast and directors, including this really revealing sit-down with Fandango.
Right, that one was great.
We've also got a Substack marketing breakdown from the Harperverse, hard box office data, and even a massive Reddit thread that leaked details from a test screening.
Which is wild that stayed up. But yeah, the mission for this deep dive is to unpack how a 25-year-old parody franchise resurrected itself, right? We're looking at how it took on modern, elevated horror, skewered Hollywood's obsession with reboots, and ultimately took back its stolen legacy from the studio system.
I have to admit, though, when I first looked at this stack of sources, I was pretty skeptical.
Really? Why is that?
Well, to me, the Wayans family coming back to this franchise felt a bit like, I don't know, like a classic rock band coming out of retirement for a stadium tour.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, you really have to ask. Are they just playing the old hits for a quick cash grab, or do they actually have something new to say about today's pop culture?
It's a completely valid skepticism, I think. The landscape of horror has completely transformed since, the year 2000?
Oh, totally.
It's no longer just teenagers making bad decisions at a summer camp. So, to understand if the band can still play, we first need to look at the structure of what they are actually spoofing.
Right. And to do that, they brought back the core four. So we've got Anna Faris returning as Cindy, Regina Hall as Brenda, Shawn Wayans as Ray, and Marlon Wayans as Shorty.
The dream team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what really jumped out at me in the sources is how they use the framework of modern requels, those reboot sequels like Scream 5 and Scream City, to drop these legacy characters into a world that has just completely passed them by.
Precisely. And, for anyone unfamiliar with the term, a requel is a movie that acts as both a sequel and a reboot. It acknowledges the original films, but focuses heavily on a new generation. The Wayans basically use that requel framework as a clothesline to hang all their pop culture parodies on.
It's pretty clever.
It really is. It gives them the perfect excuse to update the legacy characters in some truly ridiculous ways that reflect exactly where we are as a society in 2026.
The updates are honestly hilarious. Like, let's take Cindy Campbell.
Oh my God, yeah.
She is now this deeply paranoid doomsday prepper, which is a direct, pointed spoof of Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode in that 2018 Halloween reboot.
Down to the hair.
Yes. Cindy's got the bleached white hair. She lives in this heavily fortified house full of booby traps, which, of course, she constantly forgets about and falls into herself.
Yeah.
And when she goes into fight mode, the filmmakers employ this highly choreographed, almost John Wick-style camera work, where she takes down ghost-face killers with tactical rubber dildos.
It's the visual contrast that makes the comedy work there. Taking the framing so seriously, but making the weapons so absurd.
Right.
And then you have Brenda, played by Regina Hall, who is styled exactly like Octavia Spencer in the 2019 horror film Ma.
That one got me off guard.
I know, she's got the exact bob haircut, and she spends her time throwing parties for high schoolers and feeding them spiked jelly shots.
Then there's Ray, who is somehow still in deep, aggressive denial about his sexuality.
Some things never change.
Right. He is caught up in this massive parody of the movie Sinners at a church, and the church features a woke Watts EV charging station right out front.
Which is just such a great background gag.
It really is. And finally, Shorty somehow became a millionaire streamer and crypto enthusiast who hosts this massive Halloween-a-thon online.
Of course she did.
But because they are spoofing the requel structure,
right,
they also have to introduce the younger cast, who are meant to be the Scream-style replacements.
Right, the passing of the torch.
Yeah, so we get Olivia Rose Keegan playing Sarah, doing this spot-on, breathy impression of a young Anna Faris.
It is uncanny.
And Savannah Lee Nassif as Tuesday, who is just deadpanning a spoof of Jenna Ortega's Wednesday Addams.
What's fascinating here is the sheer degree of difficulty involved in what they are attempting.
How do you mean?
Well, it is incredibly difficult to parody today's elevated horror. We're talking about films like Longlegs or Weapons.
Oh, right.
These are movies that take themselves completely seriously. They focus on deep psychological trauma, intergenerational grief, high-concept visual metaphors.
Yeah, I was actually looking at the notes on films like Longlegs, and I'll admit I was totally confused about how this is going to work.
It seems impossible on paper.
It does. These movies are essentially trauma studies. They are incredibly heavy. So how do you take highly intellectual psychological thrillers and successfully make them stupid? I mean, I don't see how you spoof trauma without just being depressing.
Well, you don't spoof the trauma itself. You target the self-seriousness of the filmmaker.
Okay.
Yeah, as the Wayans pointed out in their interviews, they look at these cerebral thrillers and hunt for the inherent absurdity in how they are presented. They find the silly within the intellect.
Give me an example.
Sure, so like taking a highbrow prestige film that highlights Black excellence and sticking a woke Watts Charger in the background, it points out the sometimes performative nature of Hollywood representation.
Ah, I get it.
They are finding the joke in how seriously the industry takes its own messaging rather than mocking the message itself.
Okay, that makes sense. You punch at the pretension.
Exactly.
But if they have this perfect read on the current culture, it really begs the question, why did they leave it alone for a quarter of a century? Like, why the 25-year gap since Scary Movie 2?
So if we connect this to the bigger picture of Hollywood economics, it goes back to a highly publicized and bitter fallout with Dimension Films, which was run by Bob and Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, right.
According to the financial sources and industry breakdowns, the studio severely lowballed the Wayans brothers during negotiations after the second film.
And they just walked away.
Well, the Wayans knew what they were worth, so they refused the offer. And in response, the studio simply kept the rights and produced Scary Movie 3, 4, and 5 without them.
Which effectively killed the theatrical spoof genre for 2 decades.
It really did.
Because without the specific Black perspective and the lived awareness of the Wayans family, the knockoff films that followed, like those from Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer, they just devolved into lazy reference dumping.
Yes, and reference dumping is when a movie just points at a pop culture trend without actually saying anything about it.
Right, it was just characters walking on screen, dressed as Iron Man or Jack Sparrow, getting hit in the groin and falling down. There was no mechanism to the joke. There was no actual commentary or point of view about why those movies were popular.
It was parody without perspective. But the emotional catalyst for the Wayans to finally return and fix this is actually quite poignant.
Really? What happened?
In 2023, Marlon's father, Howell Wayans, was in the hospital on his deathbed, and he made Marlon promise to reunite with his brothers creatively.
Oh, wow.
He told him, "You guys make magic together. Do it for me."
That is, wow, that puts a completely different spin on this. It's almost like a hostile corporate takeover, isn't it? But a righteous one.
How so?
It's like the original founders of a company finally scraping together the capital and the willpower to buy their beloved company back from the board that ousted them 20 years ago.
That's a very accurate analogy. This isn't just a nostalgic high school reunion for the cast. It's a definitive mission to rescue their intellectual property from the corporate dilution that ruined the very genre they helped popularize.
Okay, so they have this massive emotional drive to reclaim their art from the executives. But,
Yeah.
you know, logistics are logistics. A 25-year gap is brutal for comedic timing and chemistry.
It is.
How do you even step back onto a set and pretend no time has passed?
Yeah.
How did they capture that lightning in a bottle?
They started by prioritizing the visual language of the film. They set up production at Tyler Perry Studios down in Atlanta.
Okay.
This was strategic because it gave them access to massive sound stages where they could perfectly recreate the specific moody lighting of modern prestige horror.
Which is crucial, right? Because if the lighting doesn't look exactly as moody and pretentious as an A24 film, the audience won't buy the joke when a rubber dildo gets thrown across the room.
Exactly. You need it to look visually authentic before you pull the rug out from under the audience. And the dedication from the cast to achieve that was unreal.
What did they do?
Well, Anna Faris apparently donated her entire salary for the film to the Wayans Family Foundation.
Wait, really? Her whole salary?
Yep. She didn't need the money. She just wanted the magic back. She was on set at 6 a.m. every single day working on the physical comedy.
That's incredible. And from what I read in the behind-the-scenes interviews, the freedom on set was a huge factor, particularly with Regina Hall's legacy of improvisation.
Oh, she is legendary for that.
Yeah. Because back on the first film in 2000, Keen Ivory Wayans originally told her not to mess with the script for Brenda. She ignored him, improvised heavily, and ended up making the character iconic.
Thank goodness she did.
Right. So on this new set, they leaned into that history. The established rule was shoot one take exactly as written to get it locked in, and then just play around to see if you can top the material.
And that desire to constantly top the material extended to the writing process as well. The real-time reactivity was unprecedented.
Yeah, I read about this.
The writers were literally lurking in the background on the actual set of the movie Weapons while it was filming in Atlanta, writing jokes about it on the fly so they could be as current as possible.
They were ruthless in the editing room to stay topical, too. Like, according to that Reddit thread from the test screening leaker, they completely cut a massive Smile 2 sequence and a huge Squid Games parody just to keep the pacing sharp.
That is a lot of money to just leave on the cutting room floor.
It's wild to think about spending all that money on a sequence and then just tossing it because the meme cycle moved on.
Yes, but they were constantly swapping things out based on what was resonating in culture at that exact moment.
Right.
They added a K-pop Demon Hunter animated musical sequence for their Get Out parody.
Wait, really?
Yeah, replacing the concept of the sunken place with a K-pop hole.
That is so absurd.
It is. They even swapped out a blackface joke during the Sinners parody in favor of a Wiccan joke at the very last minute. The script was truly a living document.
I do have to ask, though, with all this focus on dialogue, topical jokes, and rewriting scripts on the fly, did they actually pull off the physical stunts? Or is it all just people standing around in funny costumes delivering punchlines?
No, they absolutely embraced practical physical comedy. They didn't rely on digital effects.
Okay, good.
A prime example is Teyana Taylor's opening scene, which spoofs the brutal alleyway attack from Scream 6.
I saw a clip of that.
Yeah, instead of running away like a typical horror victim, she physically beats up Ghostface with a Golden Globe Award, which is this layered, hilarious nod to her real-life Oscar snub.
That is brilliant.
And they also brought back Chris Elliott as Hanson, the creepy caretaker from the second film, specifically to execute practical physical gags with his famously deformed hand. The commitment to the bit was entirely physical.
That is amazing. So all of this real-time writing, the on-set freedom, the practical gags, it all builds to a finale that is, quite frankly, a massive, aggressive statement on Hollywood itself.
It really is.
Let's break down this ending because it is wild.
It's a triple twist ending that completely abandons traditional narrative structure. First, the film reveals that the new Gen Z teenagers are the Ghostface killers.
Okay, which mimics the toxic fandom trope from the 2022 Scream requel. Just to clarify for anyone who missed that movie, the toxic fandom trope is the idea of fans who feel so entitled to a franchise, they will literally commit murder to save it from new ideas. So the Gen Z kids are the killers. Got it. What's the second twist?
The second twist is that a completely different group of legacy Ghostfaces arrives and kills the teens. And when they take off their masks, it's Marlon Wayans, Shawn Wayans, Shaquille O'Neal, and Anthony Anderson.
Which is a deeply meta joke, because Shaq and Anthony Anderson starred in Scary Movie 3 and 4 after the Wayans were fired by the Weinsteins.
Yep.
So in the movie, Shawn and Marlon brutally stab Shaq and Anderson to death as punishment for usurping their franchise.
The layers of metatextual revenge there are staggering.
And then we get the final twist. Cindy, Brenda, Ray, and Shorty end up murdering the entire remaining new teenage cast.
Just wiping them out.
They literally burn the house down so that their franchise can never, ever be passed on to a younger generation. It's almost spiteful, isn't it?
It's very aggressive.
It's like they realized the bank was going to foreclose on their beautiful, historic home, so they just dumped gasoline on the floor and lit a match so the millennials couldn't have it.
This raises an important question about the current state of entertainment. How does an audience react when creators weaponize their own climax to reclaim their IP so aggressively?
And the answer is pretty mixed.
Yeah, massively divided. The film currently sits at a 31% on Rotten Tomatoes, with a stark, glaring contrast between professional critics and general audience support.
Yeah, if you're someone who uses Rotten Tomatoes to decide what to watch on a Friday night, this movie is deliberately designed to break your algorithm.
Absolutely.
Our sources highlight both sides of this cultural clash clearly, and it's fascinating. On one hand, critics argue that the film punches down at marginalized communities. They feel the humor is mean-spirited, relying on outdated internet tropes rather than the sharp institutional satire of the original films from 20 years ago.
And on the other hand, the creators and their vocal supporters argue they're actively canceling cancel culture. They view the film as a necessary safe space for equal opportunity offense. They argue it's a place where audiences can put their phones down, stop over-intellectualizing every single joke, and just laugh collectively without the pressure of toxic online criticism.
It's a huge debate.
We're seeing a fundamental clash over what the boundaries of comedy should be in 2026. Both sides are digging their heels in.
And a movie that is this aggressive, this eager to spark a cultural debate, needs a marketing campaign that proves to audiences the franchise hasn't gone soft over the last 2 decades.
Oh, the marketing was brilliant.
You've probably noticed your social feeds absolutely flooded with promos for this movie.
It was a masterclass in reactivity. It started with the title itself. They called it simply Scary Movie instead of Scary Movie 6.
Erasing the others.
Exactly. It acts as a silent protest, effectively erasing the non-Wayans sequels from existence.
Then on May 5th, 2026, they dropped the poster. It returned to the exact format of the original 2000 poster, the characters sitting in a movie theater reacting to the screen.
I loved that callback.
It signaled the return of that specific Black perspective, mocking mainstream movies from the viewpoint of the audience, rather than just mocking the movies themselves.
And they also proved they could move at the speed of the internet. They dropped a weapons parody poster literally seconds after Amy Madigan won an Oscar for her role in the real film.
That is so fast.
That level of rapid response marketing showed fans they were paying close attention to the culture.
The viral promos were everywhere, too. They did a crossover with Bravo's Summer House, starring Ciara Miller.
Which was so unexpected.
Yeah, and they launched the Subservient Ghostface interactive website, which was an homage to that weird 2004 Burger King chicken ad where you could type in commands and a guy in a chicken suit would act them out.
Oh man, I remember that.
But it was brilliant because they used human-recorded video to actively mock today's trend of just using AI for everything. They were saying, look, we actually put in the work.
And we definitely can't ignore the merchandising strategy.
Okay, wait, the merch. I saw this in the sources, and I have to push back a bit here.
Okay, go ahead.
They released official bong-shaped popcorn buckets at AMC theaters, and they did a co-branded dry herb vaporizer collaboration with PAX, featuring Ghostface art and a web series called Don't Kill, Just Chill.
Right?
To me, that sounds like a cheap gimmick to sell plastic.
Yeah.
How does a popcorn bucket actually prove anything about the film's creative integrity?
Well, it's not about the plastic. It's about the promise. Think about the modern moviegoer. They have been burned by countless reboots that take a beloved, edgy property and sanitize it for a PG-13 audience to maximize ticket sales.
That is very true.
So to hesitant fans, these highly inappropriate popcorn buckets prove the studio wasn't sanitizing the Wayans' vision.
Ah, I see.
It assured the audience that the R-rated, boundary-pushing drug humor DNA of the original franchise was fully intact. The merch was a signal that the corporate studio wasn't pulling the strings anymore.
Wow. Okay, I didn't think about it like that. The merch is the message. It all comes back to that perspective we've been talking about. The next time you see a legacy sequel or reboot hitting theaters, you really have to ask yourself, who actually holds the creative perspective here?
Always ask that.
Does the marketing align with the true, authentic voice of the original creators? Or is it just corporate box checking, trying to sell you a sanitized version of your own nostalgia?
And that leads to a rather provocative thought to leave you with.
Okay, let's hear it.
The Wayans have now firmly and violently burned the passing the torch trope to the ground. They refuse to hand their legacy over to a new generation.
Quite literally burned it down.
Right. So what happens next? If Scary Movie 7 inevitably gets greenlit, will the Wayans have to turn the mirror on themselves? Will they be forced to spoof their own stubborn refusal to age out of Hollywood?
That would be the ultimate meta joke, wouldn't it? The classic rock band realizing they're the ones still playing the stadium tour and finally writing a song about it.
And that wraps our trip back into the wonderfully ridiculous world of Scary Movie. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Roll Credits and share it with your fellow movie fans. And let us know what film we should cover next, old or new. We'll be back soon with more trivia, more movie magic, and probably a few more jokes that absolutely shouldn't have worked.